Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We take a stack of sources, find the most surprising bits, and really try to get you up to speed.
Exactly.
Today, we're looking at something pretty specific, actually. It's a structured guide on how to start praying for other people and keep it going. But it's not just, general prayer. The source calls it a ministry. It's very intentional, step-by-step stuff about building relationships, meeting needs.
That's right. And our source material today is from excerpts called Praying for Your Neighbors. It lays out this pretty comprehensive way of engaging with people.
Okay.
So our mission for this deep dive is really to pull out the key pieces of practical advice, the steps, the things you need to think about if you wanted to try this.
Got it. So let's jump right in. First hurdle, according to the source, fear.
Always is, isn't it? Starting something new, especially reaching out to others, it can feel awkward, difficult.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. The source says, once you actually start, that fear often just vanishes. It becomes perfectly natural.
It's a powerful idea that action can change the feeling.
Right. And it reframes the whole thing. You're not imposing, you're offering, quote, the most wonderful gift in the world.
And doing it in a loving and relational way.
Which, the source suggests, usually leads not just to acceptance, but even gratitude.
How does thinking of it as a gift really change things, you think?
Oh, fundamentally. It shifts your whole mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From maybe obligation or worry about bothering someone to seeing it as an act of service of kindness, which brings up a really practical point the source makes.
Okay.
It talks about how often Christians, maybe a year or so after converting, they build strong friendships inside their church.
Makes sense.
But they sometimes lose touch with their old friends, the ones in the world, as the source puts it.
Right. The people who aren't part of that faith community. Exactly. So the question becomes, if the whole point is to pray for people far from God, well, where do you find them if your social circle has shifted?
It's a real challenge.
And the source connects this straight to Luke 19.10 del, the idea of needing to seek and to save the lost. It implies you might need to actively, intentionally build new relationships.
So it's not just praying, it's also about finding people to pray for and maybe even making new friends first.
Precisely. Which leads right into the next step in the guide, assessing yourself.
Ah, okay. How does that work?
It literally tells you to consider your friendliness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it has these pretty direct self-check questions, like what would your spouse, your kids, your parents, friends, colleagues, neighbors,
Even enemies.
even your enemies, yeah. What would they say about how friendly you are with them,
Yeah.
and why would they say that?
Oof, that's probing.
It is. And then in what areas might you not be a good friend? And straight up, how many friends do you have and how many are far from God?
That feels quite personal. Does the source kind of justify why you need to dig that deep before you even start reaching out? What's the point?
Well, the implication is clear, I think. It's about self-awareness. You need to know your own relational strengths and weaknesses, right?
Okay, yeah.
To understand where you're starting from. It's
Yeah.
about building on something authentic. Then it moves to the practical stuff. Showing care, showing kindness, learning to really listen.
Not just waiting to talk.
Right, asking good questions. It suggests taking time to chat with people you see regularly at the store, on the street, work, school, wherever.
Making those everyday encounters count.
Yeah, and the goal is to prayerfully write out a plan to build better relationships with folks far from God, making sure it all lines up with Christian values, compassion, integrity, that sort of thing.
So, groundwork first. Overcome the fear, figure out who to connect with, assess yourself, and then make a plan to build real relationships.
That's the foundation laid out in the source.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so once that groundwork is done, how do you actually start the praying for people part? The guide calls this planning your introduction.
Right. And it starts, interestingly, with preparatory prayer.
Praying before you pray for others.
Kind of. It's about praying for the people you plan to approach, asking God to prepare them, and praying for yourself, too.
For what specifically?
Wisdom, faithfulness, strength, love. Basically, equipping yourself spiritually for the interaction.
Setting the stage, okay?
And then, once that's done, it looks at the actual introduction, your prayer ministry intro. It breaks it down. Maybe an opening line, then asking for requests.
Suggesting things if they're stuck.
Exactly. And the big advice here is pick what feels natural to you and practice it. Like, really practice it.
Out loud.
Yeah, it suggests practicing aloud. It even gives examples.
Let's hear them.
Okay, like, I've been praying for people. Is there anything in your life that I may be praying for you this week? Simple, direct. Or, I pray for people and their needs. Is there anything in your life that I could be praying for you this week? Slightly different wording.
Okay. And there was one for pastors or church workers.
Yep. I am a pastor or worker at church. I have a ministry of praying for people. Is there anything that I might pray for you this week?
And you could write your own, too, it says.
Mm-hmm. If none of those feel quite right.
What's the thinking behind these specific phrases? They seem gentle but clear.
I think that's exactly it. Direct about the purpose prayer, but framed as an offer, focusing on their needs. It's invitational.
Right. And what if they just stare blankly? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's where the suggestions for prayer come in. The guide says you could offer ideas.
Like what?
Things like, maybe you have a relative who is ill, or you are concerned for your kids in school, or for a problem at work.
Yeah, and real so.
Or things going on in the community. But it stresses tailoring it if you can. Or even better, referencing something they've mentioned before.
Oh, like bringing up a past conversation.
Exactly. Like, you mentioned you were worried about your sick brother. Would you mind if I prayed for that this week? Shows you were listening.
That builds connection right there. And it says practice, practice, practice until it feels right.
Yep. Get comfortable with it. And another really practical tip.
Go on.
If someone seems hesitant, assure them of confidentiality, that you'll keep their request private.
Ah, that makes sense.
The source says this will usually make them more willing to share. It's about building that trust.
Crucial. Okay, so you've practiced, you feel ready. Now launching it. The guide talks about two main ways this might happen.
Yeah, basically two scenarios. Either you intentionally go seek the person out, or it happens more naturally during a conversation you're already having.
Let's take the first one, seeking someone out, like maybe a home visit. What's the script?
The suggestion is something like, okay, I have been praying more for people lately, and I have been thinking of you and your family. Is there anything in your life that I might pray for you this week?
Okay, similar opening.
Then you can add the suggestions. Maybe you have a relative that is sick, or you are concerned for your kids in school, or a situation at work.
And if they give you something?
A request.
You thank them, say you'll pray for it, and then this is highlighted, like in bold.
What?
Do not pray with him there, out loud or touching them.
Really? Don't pray with them. Why not?
The rationale given is, well, it's cautious. It says, you do not know what a person far from God may understand or think is really happening when you pray.
Interesting.
The advice is, let him see the results of your praying first.
Wow. Okay. So results before the overt action. What if they don't have a request?
Then you just thank them for their time, maybe say you'll keep them in mind generally, and offer to pray in the future if something comes up. Keep it light.
Okay, that's the seeking out scenario. What about the meeting naturally one, like you bump into someone? Right. The guide uses an example, Mary talking to Sarah. Mary could say, maybe mid-conversation, hey, I have been praying for others more lately. Do you have anything in your life that I might be praying for you this week?
So inserting it naturally.
Yeah. And again, maybe add suggestions like illness in the family, or for you, or perhaps for your classes. If Sarah says, yeah, pray for my exam, Mary just goes,
Okay, will do.
thanks, Sarah. I will do that.
Right.
Then they just carry on the conversation and leave normally. No big production.
And the key thing after either scenario
Is the actual prayer. Maintain the normal relationship. Don't make it weird.
No.
But then, on your own time, pray consistently and daily for him and for his need alone.
alone. It really hammers that point. Do not pray with him or in his presence.
It's a very distinct strategy outlined here. Consistency in private prayer.
What about weird requests? Like say someone asks you to pray they win the lottery.
Yeah, the guide actually addresses that kind of thing. Unreasonable requests.
What's the advice?
It says to modify the request. So for the lottery example, maybe you don't pray for the win, but you could pray for the person to be better able to manage money or find financial stability.
Ah, okay. You sort of reinterpret the underlying need or desire into something more constructive.
Exactly. It's about steering the intention towards something genuinely positive and helpful within a faith framework.
Got it. Now, to manage all this, the requests, the people, the praying source mentions a prayer journal, calls it critical.
A critical tool, basically a way to keep track.
What goes in it?
Names, the specific requests, the dates you received them, and crucially, space to note down any answers or changes you become aware of.
So it helps you remember what to pray for each day.
Right. But also it serves as a record, a reminder of, as the source puts it, God's faithfulness and of the progress of your relationships. You see things change over time.
Could be simple, like paper or an app, I guess.
Totally. Whatever works. The guide also talks about prayer walks.
Walking and praying.
Yeah. Individuals or groups walking through their neighborhood or maybe around their workplace or school.
Doing what exactly?
Praying with their eyes open, it says. Praying for the people in the houses they pass. Praying against negative influences. Evil, the source says. Praying for hearts to open up to faith.
For the whole area to be transformed.
Right. It's a way of actively engaging with the physical space through prayer, bringing that unseen work into the visible world, in a sense.
Okay, journal, prayer walks.
Yeah.
What's the final piece of the practical advice?
The follow-up, the next directed conversation. This is crucial.
Checking back in.
Exactly. After a few days or a week, whatever feels right, you find the person again.
And say what?
The key phrase is, I have been praying for his request. How is it going?
Simple, but powerful, I imagine.
Very. The source says it shows care and gives credibility. It proves you actually did what you said you'd do.
And how do you respond to their answer?
Appropriately, basically. If it's good news, you rejoice with them. If things haven't changed, you assure them you'll keep praying.
And then?
You express that you'd like to keep praying for them and ask if there's anything new, and you plan to check back in again later at appropriate, regular intervals.
So it's not a one-off. It's about building an ongoing, supportive connection.
Consistency, relationship, genuine care. That seems to be the thread running through it all.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean? We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
It feels like this deep dive has really laid out a, well, surprisingly detailed framework. It's about intentionally connecting, supporting people through prayer, but in this very careful, very relational way.
Yeah, moving from tackling your own, internal fears and figuring out who to connect with.
Right.
All the way through planning your intro, the specific do's and don'ts of praying.
Especially the don'ts.
Especially the don'ts, and then using tools like the journal and prayer walks to sustain it. It's quite the system.
It really is. It goes from overcoming those personal hurdles, like you said, finding people maybe outside your usual circle, to these practical tools.
And it all seems aimed at this core idea of meeting needs, building relationships through this consistent, often private, spiritual practice.
Absolutely. Which brings us to that final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Remember that instruction. Do not pray with him there. Let him see the results of your praying first.
Yeah, that definitely stood out.
Think about that. What does it suggest about how we build trust, how we show impact, maybe in any kind of relationship or effort, not just this specific context? Does it hint that sometimes letting people see the tangible results of your quiet, consistent effort is actually more persuasive, more powerful than showing them the effort itself?
That the outcome speaks louder than the process, maybe.
Perhaps. How might the visible outcome of an unseen action be more impactful than a direct, upfront intervention? And what could that tell us about the power of subtle, persistent effort? Well, anywhere in life.
Interesting question. Letting the results do the talking.
Something to mull over.